All right, let's dive into a report on the 2018 Digana violence in Sri Lanka. We're going to see exactly how hate speech and just plain disinformation on platforms like Facebook didn't just stay online, but actually spilled out onto the streets with devastating, real-world consequences.
That is the big question, isn't it? And what happened in Digana, Sri Lanka, is a really chilling case study. We're going to trace how a seemingly small traffic incident, once it got amplified and totally twisted by social media, spiraled into a national crisis that actually forced the government to shut down the internet itself.
To really get to the heart of this firestorm, we've got to go back to the very beginning, to the initial spark. And here's the thing you have to understand. This didn't start online. It didn't begin with a viral post or some hashtag. Nope. It started with a violent fight on a quiet road in a town called Theldenia. So, you can see how over the course of about 10 days, a tragic but still very local dispute starts to escalate. A man is assaulted, he sadly dies from his injuries, and then a small protest turns violent. It's a serious local incident, for sure, but the key thing here is that it's still contained. But this is where things get really interesting. See, the actual narrative of what happened on the ground was completely hijacked. The real events became almost secondary to this parallel story that was being built and weaponized in the digital world, mostly on social media. So, how exactly were those flames fanned? In this next part, we're going to look at the specific tools and tactics used on social media to basically pour gasoline on the embers of this local conflict and turn it into this widespread blaze of ethnic violence. And get this, that's a direct quote from the official inquiry report. The people on the ground, the ones who saw their businesses and homes destroyed, they immediately pointed the finger at Facebook as the main engine for spreading all the hate and misinformation that was fueling the mobs. And, the report isn't just talking about social media in some vague, abstract way. Nope, it names names. It identifies specific groups, like this extremist one, Mahasan Balakaya. With a huge following of almost 150,000 people on Facebook, they had a ready-made audience just waiting to receive and share their inflammatory messages. And this is the poison they were pumping out there. I mean, these weren't just opinions. They were calculated lies designed to provoke the most outrage possible. The completely false claim that the attackers were released. The ghoulish manipulation of a postmortem photo. They even recycled a viral, totally debunked conspiracy theory about sterilization pills from a different city. All of it was designed to create the sense of immediate, urgent threat. Okay, so here's the million-dollar question. How did that all translate? What's the direct line from those Facebook posts and WhatsApp messages to organized, real-world destruction? How did the digital hate actually become physical violence? Well, the data tells a pretty chilling story. Just take a look at this chart from the police report. You see this massive explosion of violence on March 5th? 270 separate incidents. Then, there's a big drop on the 6th, probably as a curfew started to take hold. But then, look at March 7th. Boom, another huge spike to 254 incidents. Now, that pattern doesn't look like a spontaneous riot that just burns itself out, does it? It suggests a coordinated campaign that was able to regroup and re-escalate. And the final toll? Well, it was just staggering. Across the entire region, nearly 600 incidents of property damage were officially recorded. This wasn't just some random vandalism. This was a widespread, systematic campaign of destruction. And if you look at what was targeted, the intent behind it all gets even clearer. Half of all the attacks were on private homes, people's personal safe spaces. Another 38% were on businesses, which is a direct assault on the economic livelihood of the Muslim community. This was about terrorizing people right where they live and where they work. And the way they did it was just terrifyingly direct. Arson was a huge factor, especially for businesses. But look at the numbers for damaged by stones/weapons. It's just staggering. Over 240 homes and 120 businesses attacked by mobs with blunt instruments. It paints this horrifying picture of violent crowds just swarming through neighborhoods, street by street. The violence, which was being organized and amplified online, got so severe, so fast, that the Sri Lankan government felt like it had no other choice but to take this incredibly drastic and unprecedented step. So the authorities basically realized they were fighting a war on two fronts at the same time. On the streets, they deployed the army and declared a state of emergency. But at the exact same time, they went after the command and control network for the violence, By blocking Facebook, WhatsApp, and other major social media platforms.
Think about that. For a whole week, an entire country was pretty much unplugged. Now, that decision was super controversial, raising all sorts of questions about freedom of expression. But it was also a crystal clear admission by the state that the digital world had become the main battleground where this violence was being organized and incited. So, after the fires were out and the internet was turned back on, what did we actually learn? What are the lasting takeaways from this digital firestorm? And what does it really tell us about the immense power and the danger of the platforms we all use every single day?
It took 2 years, but eventually, the platform at the very center of this storm acknowledged its role. Facebook's own investigation confirmed what victims and officials had been saying all along. Its systems were just not equipped to handle the rapid spread of hate speech in the local language, and they were way too slow to act.
And the official inquiry's conclusions? They leave absolutely no room for doubt. This wasn't a riot. It was an organized, premeditated campaign of violence. It wasn't some spontaneous outpouring of grief. And crucially, social media platforms were the primary weapon used to spread the lies and rally the attackers.
The story of Digana is like a tragic blueprint for how online disinformation can become real-world devastation. And it forces us to ask a really difficult question. When a lie on a screen can lead to a fire in the street, who is ultimately responsible for standing guard? The platform, the government, or is it us?